A second. Let me just make sure that I got the proper notifications. And 3, 2, 1. I think we're live. All right. That's right. All right, everyone. Welcome. Happy Thursday. I know we're gearing up for Thanksgiving. It's pretty crazy that it's already a week before Thanksgiving. I'm kind of freaking out, Bill. My name is Jake Sussman. I am the founder of Superpower Mentors. And what I do is I have been interviewing some of the most important people as part of the journey of raising a child with learning differences, whether they're experts in the sciences, in education, in research. But for the first time, I'm going to be talking to someone that's very important, right? We're going to be talking about the financial side of raising a child with a learning difference. And do you remember when your child was first diagnosed with a learning difference? There's a lot of questions that come up. One of those questions is, well, how is this going to impact us financially, right? If there's someone that could understand us and understand our situation, that can better help me plan. Because again, raising a child with a learning difference, there's a lot of unknowns, and the financial side can have a huge impact. So tonight, we meet Bill Walters. Bill is the founder of Perfectly Imperfect Families. And what he does is he helps families of those with disabilities, especially neurodiverse families, navigate this complex world of the financial side. And I don't want to say too much for Bill, so I'm going to let Bill introduce himself here, and we're going to jump right in. So Bill, you got the floor.
Jake,
who are you?
Jake, thank you so much for the warm introduction. And yes, Thanksgiving's right around the corner, and it's about spending time with family. I think first and foremost, anyone that works with you or I should come into a new opportunity with an open mind, an open heart. And I would say the heart first, mind second, spirit third. So when you come into something where you don't know all the answers and you come to an expert like yourself, Jake, or like myself, you want to come in with a smile and ready to learn. And so ready, get set, go. Positive attitude gives you a positive return, meaning if the outcome is going to be positive because like attracts like. So in this situation, we're going to learn tonight about the importance of diagnosis, medical care coverage, why it's important, what a special needs trust is, how to fund a special needs trust, how to get organized not only for yourself in retirement, but for your child, adult children, and typical children. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about aging parents and how to get them organized as well so that they are not a burden to you and you are not a burden to them.
Wow. As someone with ADHD myself, there's always that question. Look, we're very impulsive, right? And,
Yes.
It's so big question is the financial literacy is something that we're not really taught in school. And, now at the age of, especially younger parents, there's a lot of impact of this happening. And I'm very curious, what inspired you to focus on this area of financial planning?
I think it goes back to working in schools. So when I graduated from Drexel in 91 and got a little bit involved with Special Olympics and a lot involved with staffing at schools, matching the personality of the child to the personality of the personal care assistant or the teacher aide. And what I noticed was that this population was generally ignored or ostracized or not accepted or not made to feel welcome. And I'm like, this isn't fair because of all segments of the population, everyone needs to be loved, right? And what greater thing can you do for a child but to make them the best version of themselves, right? And you want that as a parent, and you want that as the person receiving the gift of service. So that's what sort of led me down this road and path to introduce the opportunity of complete coverage for special needs parents, neurodivergent, atypical, IDD, whatever the trend word comes out to. The negative of that is in the legal jargon, it's still listed as a special needs trust. You can't escape it.
Mm. Wow. And how did that impact? Did you see an impact like with your own family? Is that something else?
Yeah. So, my daughter was born in 2000 and something just wasn't quite right. She has a learning disability, reading comprehension disability. Her eyes don't track properly, meaning that she had to go for therapy to track her eyes together. She has a liver issue. She has kidney issue. She has endometriosis. I mean, I can go down the long list of things that are going on, and yet she's an overcomer. She's changed her diet. She changed her outlook. She's done some positive thinking work, and she mentors little kids that have different abilities, and she's helping them overcome the simplest of tasks of tying shoes and working with them to learn how to go to the bathroom so they could attend preschool with their friends and things like that. So she's really good with little kids, but she graduated college and she was given a 0% of the chance of that when she was in 7th grade. So we did a lot of things to improve her situation and, eliminating the bullying and working with her on reading skills and improving her eyesight and changing her glasses and how tests appear on questions and all different things. It's just involvement out of love.
Wow. And I'm just so curious, like, what are some, for families that are going through this right now, what are some unique financial challenges that some of these families are facing? I know that you were talking a little bit about the special needs trust. Some families may not even know that exists. So like, what is that? And can families of learning kids with, ADHD and dyslexia, autism, like get access to it?
Yeah. So there's yes and maybe. Okay. So we're going to start from the beginning. So when a child is diagnosed by an MD to have a learning disability or diagnosed with autism, now, and there's many variations. It's not don't feel embarrassed or ashamed because it's not a disease. B, they could probably teach you something more. You have to adjust to their brain speed. Our brain speed as a typical adult is one level. The brain speed of someone who is on the spectrum is several notches above ours. So once we adjust our thinking to their level and find out how they learn and their dominant communication language and skill, and whether they're verbal or nonverbal, that's step one. But for a parent, there are many things to do. One is to go and get the child assessed by an MD. Two is going into early intervention at the local school district to see what services are available. Three, make sure that you get your child on Medicare, and this is not an insult, but when the child is placed on Medicare and diagnosed by the doctor as being someone with limited abilities, it opens up a world of opportunity for special therapies that don't have to come out of your pocket.
Like, what does that mean?
Well, it means that they can get services from the state for physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy, and it's free. And they get and when the MD says that they need to get this diagnosis, those needs as the child ages, it increases. Okay, so hours per week or hours per day for a specific skill. So if the state provides it, it's money that's not necessarily coming out of your pocket, except for maybe transportation to and from.
So what you're saying, because I think, talking to a lot of parents and at Superpower, we're dealing with a lot of families that are either just learning about their child having a learning disability for the first time. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stigma around saying the word disability. Now, listen, like, I don't think it's a disability, all right? Like, you can't let it define who we are, but we have to embrace it. But at the same time, there's the other side to it, which is if you do look at it, I mean, if you on paper see it for what it is, what you're saying is that you can actually get services for that, correct?
Correct. And it's really important, the healthcare that may be necessary, depending on the severity of the situation with your child or adult child. And
Wow. And that
so,
could be covered.
yeah, 100% covered. Right. So, A, you want to get diagnosed. B, don't worry about the stigma. Let the diagnosis go through so you can get the services and help you want. Now, a lot of parents have to change the caretaking plan of the child depending on the situation. And so one person then turns into the main wage earner, and the other parent comes a full-time caretaker slash part-time worker in between the schedules. So if you start out as a two-income family, a lot of times it comes down to a one income and a quarter, because the child or adult child needs so much tender loving care. That's problem one. Problem two is you don't know where your money and time goes. So you don't have an organized game plan. Like, where do I funnel my attention to? If
Mm.
I have more than one child in the family and one child is atypical and the other child is typical, how do I fairly divide up my time and my resources? Is the atypical child capable of taking care of themselves without being taken advantage of? Hence why you need a special needs trust, so no one takes advantage of them and they're put in an environment that's safe and conducive to the greatest outcome of their life, meaning that you put them in a situation that's a win-win. You're able to provide for them, you love them, you put an environment for them to flourish to the highest level, and you create an area of protection or a cloak of protection around them so no one can take advantage in writing. And a
Mm.
special needs trust enables you to put a behavioral plan in the living trust section. And if you don't outlive your child, I know that sounds morbid, but if you don't outlive your child after demise or a game plan upon your passing, that's already in place in writing, because you have a behavioral plan and a budget in place for the betterment of the child. So or in many cases, the adult child. So you're able to protect and organize every 6 months. And working with someone like myself, who's done this so many times, it's a process or a marathon. It's not a one visit or a crock pot recipe where you just sit down once, you fill in the form and say, hey, we're done. It doesn't work that way. It's a relationship, and you adjust it every 3 to 6 months based on behavior, based on health conditions, based on economic circumstances. It's a constant adjustment for the best.
What age is a good time to start this? Right? Because like if my kid's like, let's say you have a kid who just got diagnosed at like 8.
Yeah. So sometimes people don't realize that a child is on the spectrum because they think they're used to it. So they think everything's okay, or they're just a little slow, but a good age to get tested is somewhere between the ages of 2.5 and 4, depending on where they are on the spectrum. If you think something just isn't right. And a lot of times pediatricians will notice, and you have to ask them straight. Do you think, are they falling in a typical range or an atypical range? And there's nothing wrong with asking that question. Is it too early to assess in our state? It's so important to put that last part, in our state. Is it too early to assess? Certain states start assessments at an earlier time than others. So again, very, very important to get organized, and you're not looking for problems. You're actually future solving for problems. And guess what? If you get the news that your child is not on the spectrum, great. If you get news that your child is on the spectrum, great. Now you have a game plan you have to put in place moving forward. Either way, there's a game plan.
Wow. And having that game plan is so important, especially for the dynamic of two parents, right, co-parenting a neurodiverse child, teenager, young adult, like there's obvious communication there. How would you advise on communication and like, obviously it's a very sensitive topic, right? You have money that's a sensitive topic, and you have special needs that are a special topic, right? So like,
Yes.
what do you do? Like if maybe that, what if like one of your, let's say your partner may not see eye to eye on some of this stuff? Like how to, I
How
don't
do
know.
you get help, right? Well, I always recommend one of three things, okay? And it just depends on your faith, okay? So you can go to somebody that is of authority in the faith that you believe in for guidance in what I call it binding arbitration. Now it's not that severe, but basically you go and what they recommend is what you follow. That's one recommendation. Second recommendation is to see a counselor, someone who has seen this before. And if you want to even go less formal, you could talk to someone like myself who's seen this thousands of times and can just give you ideas and a starter package, meaning here's the questions you got to ask yourself and here's the solutions you need.
Right.
Do you need time to incubate on this? Because if one parent is in denial, and I'm not talking about the river in Egypt, right? And the other
That's good.
parent, thank you, and the other parent
That joke.
is is all in, like let's get this done and let's tackle it full bore. Eventually, it's going to come to a head, right? And there's nothing embarrassing about helping your child be the best version of themselves.
Right, right. And I think there's this element of, and I always tell parents this too, that listen, it's not a disease, right? Like actually, this is when if you have a kid that is diagnosed who's neurodiverse,
Yep.
ADHD, dyslexia, autism. I mean, like it's important to recognize that we have to invest in our kid, right? And it's
Yep.
not going to be the path that we think. Whatever path you think it is, put that aside, right? And
Yes.
let's go in with the blank slate. And that in and of itself is scary because there's this element of control that we lose a little bit. But also we can gain if we look at it like the way, Bill, you're saying, like there are ways, if we open our eyes a little bit, there's ways that we can actually get services and plan for the future that, I mean, families need to know about, right? It's a whole new world.
Correct. You want to plan for the future because the state doesn't recognize verbal. And God forbid something happens to you and your spouse or your significant other, who is going to be the person that's going to be put in charge in the well-being of your child or children? You want to get it in writing. You want to have it organized. But not only that, the best laid plans are ones where you talk through your goals, your dreams, and your desires. And you could have three separate goals, dreams, and desires. What do I mean? You could have a desire for your personal retirement where you want to take 3 to 5 vacations a year and relax and have all your bills paid. Great. You want to have a game plan of protection for your child that's on the spectrum or IDD, where they're getting all the services they need, they're as independent as possible, and they're receiving the love that they need and deserve. And for your child or children that are typical, you want to leave a nest egg for them. And then all the way in the far right-hand corner of the back of your top drawer is your concern about your parents. They're aging. And while they're still cognizant, you want to get their wishes and dreams of what it looks like for their golden years and get it in writing and then laminate it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you laminate it, right? And you laminate it because when mom, you asked to have someone at home take care of you and make meals and clean up after you and bathe you twice a week.
So, Bill, are you saying, sorry to interrupt you, are you saying, though, that, when it comes to thinking about the future, don't just think about your kids, think also about your parents?
Yes.
Right? Because
100%.
we're so much, I mean, like so much we're in the moment with our kids, but there's other potential expenses down the road that we may not, especially for younger parents, like we may not be thinking about.
Correct. Your parents, you want to get their wishes. Do they want to go into an assisted living home or a senior living home? How's that going to affect their nest egg? And their nest egg, do they want to leave anything to you? And it doesn't matter if they do or don't. You just want to get their wishes in writing, because you, as a parent, want to make sure that things are lined up and organized.
No, I have a question. Are there any grants, scholarships, or tax benefits that parents should know about?
Yeah, there are plenty of grants that are available. Okay. And yes, I have friends that are experting in grant receiving and writing. So whether you are running an organization or an individual family, there are always opportunities available to apply. It doesn't mean you're going to get them, but the key is to do it the right way, to fill out the grants correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that, again, the goal here is I want to make sure, and parents watching, like, feel free to just ask questions in the comments, because we're going to see this, even if it's not live anymore. Like, shoot us a message in the comments here. I'm going to see it. And if you have a question for Bill, I'll make sure that we relay that question to him. And Bill, again, this has been so great to have you on here. We're talking a lot about like when kids are first getting diagnosed, but I want to talk about this transition into adulthood, right? Because there's a lot of unknown, right? Like, will they launch? Like, are they going to, the ultimate goal is that our kids will be happy and independent, right? And independence is relative. Happiness is relative. Independence is the true underlying factor. And that also comes with financial independence. So let's say we have, your child is not financially literate at all. And that's a big concern, especially being neurodiverse. We may not understand money the same, especially with our impulses. What are some tips you can give some of these parents to like help their kid, essentially? Yeah.
So, one, find out what really interests your child, like what makes them happy, what really works with them. And so I'm going to suggest a couple of occupations that, even though you might not think they're capable of, you can still give them a chance. A professional dog walker, okay, is something that somebody that is neurodiverse can do for a living. A baker, now not necessarily near the oven, but exactly making the same mixing directions and follow through each and every time when they're making a giant cake and they're doing 100 cakes a day, that can be done. How about somebody that works on a horse farm that takes care of horses? Horses have a great connection with kids with autism. A bagger at a grocery store. These are just some ideas. Now, if the kid is or future adult child is gifted with computers, they might have the ability to test games or to write programs, depending on what their skill set is. All these things are great ideas for employment in the future. But you asked a specific question about not having them take advantage of. And so when they approach guardianship, meaning the age of 18, you want to have the ability to make the medical decisions for your child, and the financial decisions. It's a decision that you have to discuss with your partner. But you will know that for medical decisions, you would have to start the guardianship and the paperwork anywhere from a year and a half to as late as 9 months prior to their 18th birthday, because otherwise the state is going to recognize them as an adult.
There's so much to know. It's
right.
Kind of, yeah, keep going. Yeah.
So the state's going to recognize them as an adult. And I had an unfortunate circumstance where a car dealership actually sold a sports car to someone who on the spectrum, and they drove it off the lot. Thank goodness they didn't get in an accident. And the next day the car was returned, and the family's like, well, didn't you do a credit check? And didn't you do this and that? He said, no, he wanted the car and we gave it to him. And so they took advantage of the situation. So what we did is, when it returned back to the lot and I was made aware of it, the price dropped by $6,000 because it went off the lot and then it came back, and it only had like 18 miles on the odometer. So we did a GoFundMe and raised the $6,000 for the family so that they
Wow.
could return it back. And that situation was resolved, right? So when the situation gets resolved like that, you want to have everyone organized. You don't want anybody being taken advantage of, and that's an extreme circumstance. But again, it helps you. So so you want to have medical protection and financial protection. One way is to have a debit card in place so that with the limits on spending, or if you can have a travel companion or someone that is focused on traveling with.
And you're saying this is for the child.
Yeah, even as an adult child. So say
How
some.
old? How old do you recommend giving a child a debit card?
Oh, 16.
Okay.
Uh, but I mean, it depends on the level of monetary awareness, because if you have a travel companion or a personal care assistant with them, it could take care of an Uber or a Lyft. It could take care of coffee at a coffee shop if they're hanging out with their friends. So it gives them some liberty and some freedom, but it depends on the level of socialization that they are craving and that they need, right? Uh, but again, it's a debit card, so there's a spending limit on it. So, a $50 spending limit is not going to be someone taking advantage of them,
And by
right?
the way, I think that's really good too, because having ADHD or autism, there's that dopamine hit, right? Of like
Yep.
I'm seeing it go down. And something that was really helpful for me growing up is seeing cash. Like the debit card's hard because you can't hold it. And I'm curious what you think about this, right? Like you can't like the only way you can see how much money you have is on the screen. It's a number, right? But when you have cash, right, like you can actually hold and see how much is actually $100. Like what does that look like and feel like, right? Then you see it diminish, right? And that's something that to be able to plan all that out was something that was helpful for me. But being able to have that limit and seeing, wow, like all of a sudden I have $5 left.
Right.
Right? Whoa, where did my money go?
Exactly. And what's worse is if you give someone, $25 bills and you fan it out to them because they have one bill that's 100 or $25 bills, right? They're If they don't have a concept of money, they don't know what a candy bar costs. You give them a 5, they might not even worry about the change, and they just lost $3 in the transaction, but they got their candy bar, right? So that's why the debit card works. It takes the monetary worrying about change away, and having a travel companion also works. But the protection, both on the medical decisions, right? Sometimes if a child is extremely learned and they read the internet a lot, they think they're coming down with all the latest diseases, and they check themselves into a hospital, and look what happens, right? And they're in a hospital, and if you don't have, a card there for them, and you get the phone call, there's nothing wrong with your son or daughter, but we did a bevy of tests, right? Well, those things don't take place if the child is under guardianship, right? They have to ask the parent for permission to do the test, as opposed to, right? So you're protecting from a situation being taken advantage of. So
Wow.
you have the medical side, and then you have the financial side. Both of them are equally important. Both of them are 1A and 1B, and why guardianship and paperwork starting before the age of 18 is so important, because once the child crosses that threshold of 18, it could take upwards of 3 years. Yes, I said 3 years to go through the red tape to switch the control from them as an adult to you as the parent for those two things, medical and financial control.
Wow. Interesting. Well, this has been so insightful, and we're definitely going to have you back on. I just for the parents out there, just for some parting do you have any like words of wisdom for them? Like any words of comfort, especially as like a dad in this space? Not a lot of us
Right.
out there, right?
So
Yeah.
the biggest thing is that it's okay to be selfish for your child and selfish for yourself as a parent at the same time, meaning that you want the greatest possible outcome for positivity for your child and for yourself in retirement, right? So get a game plan in place, put things in writing. It's okay to have dreams. It's okay to have or an organized path to get you from point A to point B. Listen to other parents who've been through the same exact situation as you have been placed in. Get involved in other parental groups because their experiences might be similar and like-minded. So surround yourself with friends who understand and realize that sometimes it's okay to take a break and to get some respite help, meaning a 5-minute break, a 10-minute break, or a day break, right? Where you can just take a shower, go food shopping, and go watch a movie in peace, right? So it's that simple, and you're not alone, right? You have friends out there, and if you don't have any friends out there and you live in a certain area,
Reach out to us.
reach out to us, right? Because we can help, right? We can help direct you into parent groups, get you organized in new ways, and offer a helping hand and some love. Everybody needs love.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, and I want to just, and for the moms watching, go nudge dad and show them this part, because I'm going to ask Bill, Bill, what is some advice you can give a dad watching this right now? Dad to dad. Yeah.
Yes. So I belong to a dad network, and it's men are not really comfortable about talking about their feelings or what's going on in their life. But you could go into a group and express yourself without any judgment. So it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay not to wear a Superman cape. And it's okay to just say, you know what, I don't know what I don't know. And then you learn, right? So it's okay to learn. It's okay to relax and take a deep breath. And you have friends, and you'll realize pretty quickly who your friends are and how you can move forward. And it's a lot easier to do it in a group instead of isolating yourself.
Do you have a good, like, the dad network that you're,
I have a great dad network now, but in transparency, I think that things today are better as far as guys moving forward than they were when I was starting the journey. So with this, I would just tell you this. Life is too short to worry, right? Seek and get help. No one's perfect. Don't worry about being judged, right? Be open-minded, like I said in the beginning, right? Be open-minded. Have your heart, ears, and mind open for opportunities of change, and be willing to learn. And when you learn, you might learn it's not for you, but then again, you might learn it is for you. Right?
Done. I'm in. I love it. Bill, thank you so much for getting on here. And families, please don't hesitate to, even after this, right? Because you're going to be watching this not live, comment and I'll see it. And if you have any specific questions for Bill, I'll make sure I relay it to him. All right. And if not, visit his website, www.perfectlyimperfectfamilies.com. Bill, thanks so much for hopping on here.
Thank you. Take care.